Good evening, everybody. This is Lee, the Cold War Prepper, and welcome to the Tuesday night nonfiction SHTF Prepper Book Club. So we are continuing on with James Wesley Rawles' book, How to Survive the End of the World as We Know It. Tonight we're working on Chapter 8, I believe. Chapter 7, Gardens and Livestock. A very interesting chapter. And he mentions one of my favorite books in here as well, and I'll show you a copy of that. I have it linked, and then we can get that we can show it for you on the links. Let me get up here and welcome people. Holly Ivans, good evening. Welcome. Shenanigans, I don't know why you're not showing up blue. I've got you down as a moderator, but and you're showing up in the moderator, but you're not showing up on the live feed as a moderator. So, but you're showing up in the control panel. I don't understand that, but we will try to find that. Do me a favor, send me a link to your channel so that I'm making sure I've got the right Shenanigans there as a moderator. Aussie Life, good evening. Maggie, good to see you again. Phioxerus, good evening. Yeah, everything here is burning big time. I don't know about you. And then we're still under water restrictions. So I can water my tomatoes and my potatoes and I've killed my blackberry bush, and the grapevine is doing well. But, water restrictions are killing us here, and we need a lot more rain. Maybe they're saying that, Bertle is going to come up towards the Texas coast. So maybe we'll get a little bit of rain out of it. Little Lone Prepper, good evening. Good to see you. Utah Mike. Jan's Life, that's a new name. Welcome. Good to see you. Always nice to have new people. You'll find some of the best people on earth here in comments, and just an outstanding group of people. Very supportive. Feel free to ask questions. They will answer to the best of their knowledge, and then I will try to help them. But you have a very good knowledge base here with all the people who subscribe and show up on a regular basis. So make sure you ask them good questions. Let me see. And I'm going to say Iwe from the UK. So Iwe is kind of a German name, or actually it'd be Eve, Eve. So anyhow, good evening. Welcome. Nice to see you as well. Gosh, it's late. It's very early in the morning for you. It's probably about 0300 for you. But thank you for being here. Wow. Thank you. That's really an honor. Let me see who else. Diana too. I hope I got you. Gil, Gray Man Prepping. Good evening. Good to see you. Gene Sin. Good evening. Good to see you. Hill Summit Homestead. Jack, all the way from Australia. I know it's tomorrow morning already where you are. So good morning to you. And let's see who else. Kaylin Strain, good evening. And she's in the same time zone, I believe. That's quite all right, Jan's life. John's life. Let me see. Yeah, John's life, not Jan. John's life. That's quite all right. If you are in the Texas area, you can come Smith for me all you want to. I'm looking for a way. I have an original, the first production, one of the first two production runs, Ruger 1022, that I'd like to put a scope on. So if you can help me with that, that would be fantastic. Yeah, you and I are in the same time zone, Kaylin. And I think you said you're in Des Moines, if I'm not mistaken. But let's get into this phenomenal book. I did want to show you last night. I don't know why I couldn't find it. This was in the closet with my bug out bag. Okay. So I looked I tore the garage apart. I took I got both of the extra bedrooms torn apart, just looking for this, couldn't find it. But this is my personal IFAC, and it does me a lot of good when I put it somewhere where I can't find it. This is from my IFAC. I tell you, other than the fact that it's about 6 pounds, this is just a phenomenal piece of gear. I do have a discount coupon code as well as a link down below. I am an affiliate with them. This is my favorite bug out bag IFAC. Now, the one that I did show you last night, I bought when I had my store, and I sold those at my store, and that's from Echo Sigma. I do not have an affiliation with them, but that is also a very good IFAC. So I would recommend either one of those two. Of course, you're going to get that's this guy's specialty, is IFACs and first aid gear. Whereas Echo Sigma, their specialty really is bug out bags and I'm never coming home bags and get home bags and all that kinds of stuff. So different foci on what it is that they want to get you to do. Okay. So let's talk about Chapter 7, gardening and livestock. It starts off with sizing a new garden. He says, as a scant minimum, I'd recommend a 25-foot by 35-foot garden plot for a family of 4. And so he says that he recommends bio-intensive square foot gardening. Now, he doesn't mention it in this book. This is 2009, but this is the book that I bought actually, this is a newer edition of it. I bought the original one when I was at Fort Huachuca in Sierra Vista, Arizona. So I had to get that probably about 1988 or 1989, the original one of this. But this is square foot gardening. So you basically take your plot and you divide it. It's a raised bed garden system, and you fill it full of potting soil and everything else. Divide it up into 1 square foot areas, and then it tells you, what plants you can plant. So here's basically what it's going to look like. Okay. But it tells you basically what plants you can plant. Some of them you can get 5 to a 1 square foot area. Some of them you can only get 1. I mean, really great, fantastic item to have. I want to look for this. One of the things that I got from my county extension office, that you can go to your county agricultural extension office as well, is get your vegetable planting guide for your area. And so this tells me basically by month. So right now we're right here in this month. So I should be planting, if I want them, let me see, collards, corn, cucumber, finishing up with green beans, okras finishing up, probably due to harvest. English peas are finishing up. We can start later on this month. We can start with okra, the second crop. We can start with English peas, a second crop, short crop, southern peas, and then squash and tomatoes. So that's pretty much where we are as far as this is what our county agricultural extension office recommends that we plant and harvest here in this particular area. It gets extremely brutal here very shortly. Today we were 101. So we're pretty much going to be above 95, usually above 98. And we will probably have somewhere in the vicinity of 85 to 95 days over 100 degrees between now and the 1st of October. So we are in a very, very heat intensive area. I think I'm going to have to get some let me get my lungs clean here real quick. Triple G Farms, welcome. Good evening. I've talked about this guy an awful lot. This is one of my favorite YouTube gardening channels. This is Kevin Espiritu, and he is in San Diego. He's the guy that did a 20 by 30 foot wheat garden in his backyard in San Diego and only got enough wheat to make 1.5 loaves of bread. So that tells you it's going to be very intensive as far as, if you plan on doing corn, wheat, those other large crops, you're going to need a lot more area than just a 20 by 30 backyard. And you've got to be prepared for that. East Tennessee preparedness. Take a look. I gave you a wrench as well. So welcome. Good to see you. Then I picked this up at my local Home Depot and month by month gardening in Texas. So it kind of gives us all the different things, when to fertilize, how to fertilize, and everything else for the Texas area. I've been doing this about 8 years. I'm not successful yet. So there's a very, very shallow learning curve with gardening. It just takes lots of experimentation, learning by mistake, and everything else. And it's terrible. I've got 3 bags of fertilizer that I ordered on Amazon right here on the back porch for my potatoes, because evidently they require a different kind of potato for the roots because they are tubes, a tubular process. So they need a different type of fertilizer than everything else. So I've got, all these different fertilizers, one for tomatoes, one for potatoes, one for, then you need acidic stuff for grapes and blackberries and things like that, and other berries. They really like the acid. The boys are visiting, so that they came down with their mother from New Jersey, and we took them to Gaddyland, which is basically, they call it Pizza Land, but it's basically, at first you start off eating pizza. We had a little birthday party for my oldest grandson. He's turning 6 on the 15th, but he'll be back in New Jersey for his actual birthday. So we had a little birthday party for him at Gaddyland, and we ate pizza, and then we went and played, close to, it's like a penny arcade, is what we called them when I was a kid, but not a penny anymore. It was $60 per kid for a card to run through the machines. Unbelievable. One of his preferred grains for growing on small acreage is barley. He says you can get more productivity out of barley than you can anything else. Somebody in here had mentioned once before, and it may have been Kaylin, that they had very good success with amaranth, and that was a really good hardy seed that produces a lot more, and you get more productivity out of it and can use it better for flowers and things like that than you can with wheat. So he recommends barley. He gives a whole bunch of tools, especially if you're going to have corn. I did not realize how intensive corn is as far as needing shucking gloves and all this other kinds of stuff. He says you'll need a couple of corn knives, some husking pegs, shucking gloves, and there are a variety of hand-cranked machines made specifically for hulling rice and barley, for pressing oil and shelling corn, peas, and so forth. He talks about you need a large aluminum scoop grain shovel, and I think that's for somebody who's going to have a bigger backyard than I have. Soaking your berries, sprouting. One of the things that has come out really big since this book that is very popular are microgreens. And so I have a microgreen kit. I haven't started it yet, but I do have a microgreen kit only because we don't have enough room here in the house. I did have a white table basically in my bedroom that I could put things on and then hopefully get a little bit, but because that's due north behind me, I'm facing due south, and so that's due north. We don't get that much sun coming in from the back windows. So the things I tried to grow in our bedroom did not work out that well. This is due west right here, where my back used to be. So it used to be that I had the setting sun coming through that window all the time. Now I'm with my back to the north. You're not getting quite as much of a setting sun. Although you can see over here, there we go. You can see that it's still pretty bright out there. Let me see. He talks about all the hand tools that you're going to need to have. Then he talks about handling varmints in the garden. So having a steady fence against deer, although I have a feeling that deer are going to be taken care of by all the other people who want meat. And a couple of cats, plenty of traps to include buried mole, gopher traps, lots of 22 ammo and patience. A high-powered pellet rifle would be good. Natural pest killers such as ladybugs or aphids, lacewings, and praying mantises. I have had a very hard problem with ladybugs as well as with worms. Worms get burnt up. I have a tower garden in the backyard, and so they go through the worms basically compost the tower garden. They get burned up in the summer, and then in the winter they freeze. So one summer I went out and I have a total of like 48 holes in my tower garden for different plants. I was putting an ice cube in each one of the holes twice a day, trying to keep that thing cool down. And even that didn't keep the worms alive. So, it's pretty harsh here as far as growing different crops. So cotton grows well, but you can't eat cotton. Let me see here. Natural pest killers such as ladybugs. We talked about that. To repel birds, get a couple of big plastic owls, scarecrows basically, but these are owls. We had them when I was HR director for the homeless shelter downtown. We had those plastic owls on the corners of all our buildings. We had these spike strips on all the edges of the buildings. Didn't keep the crow or the blackbirds off of the buildings anyway. So, that didn't work that well. I was not that impressed with it. Growing indoor, he talks about dwarf fruit trees that can bear, and you can grow those indoors. Sprouting. Oh, I was going to put that square foot gardening link there. There we go. And okay, and before we get into livestock, let's go back and check and see questions and everything else. Little on Prepper evidently is familiar with square foot gardening and likes it. Kaylan, I'm sorry to hear that. We have a chance that we're going to get burl here. Right now, it's only a 25% chance, but that's something. Okay, just harvested sweet peas. Start some root vegetables this weekend. Way to go, Utah Mike. Gil prefers Howie at Food Forest Periculture. East Tennessee Preparedness. Hello, Jim. Welcome. Always good to see you. Thank you, Shenanigans. I made a terrible mistake when I was younger and I started smoking. And so all of my lung condition is my own fault. I have to confess that. I smoked for over 45 years. And I would still. I spent so much money on stop smoking stuff. I mean, like you would not believe. And then what finally got me to stop smoking was when I was working at the homeless shelter. I was in the elevator one day with somebody who had MRSA pneumonia, and I contracted MRSA pneumonia. And you somehow have a magic way of quitting smoking when you're on a breathing machine in ICU for 3 weeks. And so that's what got me to quit smoking. It cost a little bit more. Of course, my copay wasn't that much, but cost a little bit more than a lot of the smart stop smoking programs that I was on. But one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. It was not to even get anywhere close back to it again. So Helen and I both smoked. Both of us have now stopped that. We don't do that anymore. Although we miss some of the social activities around that, like going out on the back porch in the evening and things like that. So Phioxera says that unfortunately in his zone, he can't replant if he has a failure. You're in Massachusetts, right, Phioxera, if I remember right? And Maggie is in Central Florida. The heat's taking its toll on general items like squash, but sweet, another root plant. So yeah, tuber are still getting huge. That's great. Muskoka Oma, good to see you. Good evening. KP Heathen, good evening. Good to see you as well. From Louisiana. And let me see here. Who else? North Carolina farmer, good evening. My best buddy in the Army was from Smithville, and his family grew tobacco. He and I went to NSA and worked together for a little while. Then he got out of the Army, went to work for the railroad company, and he retired in Asheville. God, that's a gorgeous place. I love Asheville. Don't like the politics, but I love the terrain. Everything is just fantastic. Holly Ivins is in New Jersey. Okay, I've missed something here. North Carolina farmer says that his wife is in here also. So, don't know who that is, but let's see. Okay, Gil. Gil says that he has a 30 by 90 so far and will take a lot more to support us. I think that's one of the things that we just have to understand is it's going to take massive effort to farm, to feed your family. I was talking to somebody on Facebook today, and they were talking about wanting, how long do we need to have our food for? And I said, depends on how experienced you are in gardening and farming, because the idea is you want to have enough storage to sustain you until you can be self-sustaining with your own production as far as crops and animals. And so if you don't know anything, and even some of us who are a little bit more hard-headed and harder to learn, like I've been learning for 8 years and still couldn't feed my family if I wanted to in my backyard. So it all depends. It's a very, very non-specific mathematical computation, because right now I could not feed my family anything. We'd be eating, if there were any left, we'd be eating wild birds, hopefully some wild pigs. We have an inordinate amount of wild pig here in Texas, and then squirrel and rabbit, and of course fishing. But and I probably would not stand there on the side bait casting like I would for sport. I would probably be using either a gill net or a trap or something like that, or trot line or something like that. But something where I can basically walk away and forget it. However, in the society we'll be living in without rule of law, I also need to have some sort of observation over it, because somebody else may just help themselves to my food. Okay, so Kaylin says she has not grown amaranth, but she has the seeds but haven't planted them. Okay, I understand that the amaranth is probably going to be one of our lifesavers in a post-apocalyptic world. Okay, so Gene Sin, I guess, is North Carolina farmer spouse, if I'm interpreting that correctly. John's Life got the mag tight, going to test the feed. Now it was loose and causing the rounds to smack the chamber face instead of entering. I'm not a gunsmith. I'm jealous. That's a skill I wish I had. So that will be an extremely valuable skill, by the way, in a post-apocalyptic world. YouTube does block some verbiage. For some reason, no one here will remove your comments unless they are not in line with standard community verbiage, as you may be experiencing YouTube. Okay, so yeah. Now I am aware of one person in the past, 2 years, who has been blocked. Now we really kind of talked to a guy and encouraged him not to come back, but we didn't block him about a year ago. And then we had one just in the last week or so who was just really obnoxious and saying, he started out okay, and then all of a sudden he just, I guess anonymity got to him, and he just started saying some stuff, and somebody blocked him. So that's the only one I'm aware of that's ever been blocked, but we have a pretty good group. And so we allow our moderators pretty much free reign. All we ask is that you be polite, kind, and respectful to each other. And if you have a problem, take it out on me. Don't take it out on my moderators, so. But I'm thin-skinned, I will tell you that. Oh, that's right. Jim is a night shift worker. I forgot about that. So thank you. Thank you for making time for us, Jim, during your hard work. Okay. Muskoka, I'm not myself, had a really awful day, and the last few weeks have been straight from the depths of hell. I'm not really with it. So if I do not respond, it's because I can't keep anything straight up. We'll pray for you. How's that, Muskoka? Yeah, there are circumstances that kind of get all of us. I've been kind of in a funk over the diatribe and everything else that's coming out from the left over the Supreme Court decision. For years and years and years, that has been the practice, what the Supreme Court codified. For example, President Obama ordered the Hellfire attack on Anwar al-Awlaki and his family. So they killed 5 U.S. citizens with a Hellfire missile, and we didn't prosecute him. And there's all kinds of things that we could probably prosecute President Biden for doing, the borders. And then he's defied the Supreme Court orders twice not to eradicate student loan debt, and he's violated Supreme Court orders twice. And, so all this stuff from the left about how they think that this Supreme Court decision is going to turn Trump into a king, I'm thinking, really, we've had this has been going on. And if they hadn't put a trial case against him to try to keep him off the ballot, then it probably would not have had to have gone to the Supreme Court, and it would have just been continuing on as it always has been. And so the only thing is now that the practice that has been since 1785, when the Constitution was ratified, it's been standard practice. We've done that, and now it's written down as a Supreme Court decision. That's all there is. Let me see here. Keep on going. Okay. Yes, we are here. Oh, wow. Snail and slug bait. Yes, absolutely. And we get field mice here. We're kind of in an open area. So there's a house directly behind me, but over there's open field. And so we get field mice here quite a bit. We haven't had any rat problems, but we do get field mice. There are a couple stray cats that take care of that for us, pretty much. Little Lone Prepper says that they have it, and that it's called pigweed, but it doesn't sound good, but it is edible. I understand that if you grind it into a flour, it's the same thing basically as a wheat flour. Let me see if I can catch up with everything here. Oh no, that is terrible. Yeah, we've got a 15-year-old long-haired Chihuahua, and I'm not sure how much longer she's going to make it. Her back has gone out, and so she has a hard time walking. And we got her a muscle relaxant shot a week ago tomorrow, and that was $170 for a muscle relaxant shot. I'm not so sure I can afford that on a monthly basis, and that's what they're recommending. So, that's not nowhere close to losing, but they're a member of the family. I just read an article this morning by a vet that the number one complaint that he has as a vet is the number of people who aren't with their pets when they're put down, and that they look to us to be there with them, and that we should be there. We should be there with them as they go, because they're looking for us for comfort. And I have never not been there. The dogs have sat in my lap. I've had to put down two, and they've sat in my lap both times. So Arco was our first poodle, and he was something else. He was my guy. Let me see. So if you want to share a picture or anything like that, Muskoka Oma, please do that, because we try to understand how you're feeling. Hello, Jeannie Barnes, Northwest Oregon. Wow, welcome. I'm reading a book about that. Well, actually, we were reading a book about Northwest Oregon. They actually go from Olympia to Northwest Oregon, and that is 299 Days, that series by Glenn Tate. So evidently he is in the Oregon area, and so all of his books on prepping, on fiction prepping, are based in Oregon, and from Olympia. No, Olympia is Washington, isn't it? Washington, Oregon area. The Pacific Northwest. Let's put it that way. So welcome. Good to see you. Let me get up here. Gosh, I get so far behind in the comments. I'm so sorry. Gil's like I am. He's got grandsons coming over, so he's got his priorities there. So Keelan says that'll be much harder for those of us who have to live in the city. I managed to get some herbs and greens to grow on my deck. Yep. Suburban, even suburban is going to be difficult. City, especially if you're in an apartment, is going to be extremely difficult. So I empathize with you. I know that we've got gnats from this fern over here. So if you see me swatting at things, it's gnats from my plants. Debt growing can be so tough. Yes, I agree. So a lot of mine are out. And for example, my potatoes, I have those in 10-pound or 10-gallon bags, growth bags. Tracy Brewing, good evening and welcome. Good to see you as well. Let me catch up. Golly, gosh, they're good to go. Okay, I'm going to bypass all this. Simple Times. We experimented with a 10 by 20 reg store, bought on Amazon green plastic greenhouse with a wood burner and an ice house pilot gas heater. Here in Zone 6, we had tomatoes, herbs. Wow, that's fantastic. I'm jealous. Okay, let me see if I can get down here. Oh, it looks like Little and Pepper did some research while we've been talking, and every part of the plant can be eaten, but the young leaves and growing tips on older plants are the tastiest and most tender. The seeds are nutritious, edible, and not difficult to harvest. So yeah, so evidently amaranth is a very good thing to have. Oh, Muskoka Oma, yes, thank you so much. That's yeah. Thank you. And unfortunately, that places a little bit longer and harder burden on you. And gosh, my heart goes out to you. I know the burden of that, but know that you were a comfort to your precious loved one. And thank you for doing that. That's 90% of the population doesn't have the wherewithal to do what you did. So thank you so much for doing it that way. Yeah, Olympia is I thought about that as I was speaking. So yeah, thank you. Let me catch up. Golly, get down here to the bottom. Okay, so I'm gonna mark Maggie's comment here. So ex-NYC prepper, OG prepper, good evening, welcome. So good to see you and have you here with us. Let's get into the second part of this chapter, if I can find my book. There it is. And he is now talking about livestock. So he says, try to get dual and triple purpose livestock. So many breeds of chickens no longer will sit on their eggs. They've been selectively bred to produce eggs and nothing more. So there are chickens you grow to eat, and there are chickens you grow for eggs. And then what he says is, find the ones that do both. Find the ones that produce eggs that grow into big chickens, so that you can have your eggs and your chickens too. He also says, look for dual-purpose sheep and dual-purpose cattle. Sheep and goats are very popular from here west in Texas. So sheep and goats both do extremely well. As a matter of fact, Tom Green County, San Angelo, is the goat capital of Texas. So that's they do a lot of goat there, and then of course that's some good meat as well. You can also use the goat milk. So that provides you with both. That's a dual purpose: the milk as well as the meat. So goats would be something good for you. I think it's goats that have they only have one or two offspring, and it's very cyclical, almost predictive, and they've done some crossbreeding and inbreeding and everything else, where now they have 2 per litter, and so that you can get that going and very well. Some other that he recommends Icelandic sheep, which are quintessential triple purpose breed. They have very high milk production. Their fiber is really good for wool, and their ability to raise twin lambs. Oh, I'm sorry, it was a sheep. Twin lambs to market weight in 4 to 6 months on grass alone. So sheep are going to be very valuable. Here, probably what we would go with raising domestically in the backyard would be either chickens, and we would have to get a lot of cooling air on them and a lot of shade because of the intense heat that we get here. And the other thing that grows here naturally is going to be rabbits. As a matter of fact, the next hill over is called Rabbit Hill because of the amount of wild rabbits that they have on it. Small scale pig raising. These are some books that he recommends. And Getting Pigs and Small Scale Pig Raising by Dick Van Loon. Raising Rabbits the Modern Way by Bob Bennett. Raising Sheep the Modern Way by Paula Simmons. Ducks and Geese in Your Backyard, A Beginner's Guide by Rick and Gil Lautman. Our last house had a duck pond, which is migratory. They come in and they have it all set up for the migratory birds. And so that was really good. The Family Cow by Dick Van Loon and Raising a Calf for Beef by Phyllis Hobson. It looks like some interesting comments coming up. Some other animals you might consider raising are pigs, emus, fish, of course, koi and things like that, cows, goats, chickens. He talks about making sure you have pasture fencing. So one of the things you might want to do in an instance like us, where we have these fenced off backyards in a suburban area, is get a bunch of these fences in between the yards, cut down, so you can contain your wildlife inside a larger grazing area so that they have more area to graze on. Because we are on, I think this is 50-foot lots, 75-foot lots. Let me check here. Okay. So they have different garden screens, and they have different amounts, and it's on a scale of 0 to 100 of how much sunlight it'll block. So you can get them to where you're blocking like 60% with a 60 block screen, or even 100%. Let me see. There's a country park here in Iowa that uses goats to keep the grass and weeds in check. Absolutely. And there is a herder here in Williamson County that does the same thing. So he will rent out his goats to feed on your property and take care of everything for you. They have that at Westinghouse up near Georgetown, and they also have it on the Dell campus here in Round Rock. And so you can go to Dell and you can see the goats out eating the grass instead of having mowers out there all the time. Wallapini, I'm not sure what that is, or a greenhouse. Too many boulders for a Wallapini and too much wind for the greenhouse. Well, yeah, that sounds like West Texas. Wow, Utah Mike, a zucchini last night. That's fantastic. I watched a story here on the news that the newest, most popular restaurant, actually it's a food truck in downtown Austin. He makes pickle sandwiches. So he takes a large dill pickle and slices it in half, puts all the sandwich content, the cheese, onions, and the meat in between the two pickles, the two halves of the pickle spear, and then you eat that. So basically you're using the pickle as a substitute for bread. And evidently that's a really popular new restaurant or food truck in downtown Austin. Tracy has been raising rabbits for 3 years. She has a barn with air conditioning and just bought 2 large bins. Will start raising worms under them soon. Oh gosh, I'm jealous. Yes. And my sister-in-law is trying to sell her ranch, and they raised quarter horses and thoroughbreds and trained them and raced them. And so their barn is air conditioned. But because the barn is air conditioned, Comanche County taxed it as living quarters, because once you put in air conditioning or heating into a barn, then it changes from a barn, farm raising barn, into a living quarters, and so the taxes on it are just unbelievable. Let me see. Oh wow, that's a good idea. Quail is a good idea, but just quail are so small. And it's going to take so many of them to feed anybody. And yes, I agree. Goat meat is fantastic. That's one of the things in San Angelo that you can get very easily. And that's also very common thing to eat in Greece. That's what heroes are made from. As far as I'm concerned, all animals and even a lot of plants are too susceptible to things because I just don't know how to handle them yet. So for me, almost everything is high maintenance because I just have not learned well enough yet how to handle it. Yeah, and that's what Dell does. They rent the goats to eat their. Let me see. Okay, so jalapenos are basically partially sunken greenhouses designed to be able to support tropical plants, even citrus. Wow. Yeah, and so I found out that here, evidently, I want to have a peach tree. Peaches grow extremely well here in Central Texas. I would love to get a lemon or a lime tree, but I would have to get them in potted plants because they don't do too well with freezes. And although it gets extremely hot here in the summer, which they love, we do get a couple weeks below freezing in the winter, so that would kill them. So I would have to be able to put them in a potted plant and bring them in over the course of the winter, especially when we have a freeze watch. Simple Times has telling us how she built her jalapeno, I guess it is. And thank you for sharing that. Let me see. I get goat meat from local halal food store here. You can also get lamb too. Yep, I'm quite sure. I'm quite certain. Both of those are just great meats. Mm. I have heard that, and we did that here a couple times, but unfortunately, the freeze lasted too long. We've had 2 ice mageddons here in Central Texas over the course of the last couple of years, and it works good for the first day or two, and then after that, then basically as the ground temperature starts getting saturated and you get your freeze down to depth, then that becomes a problem. Now, usually, we don't get our ground frozen deeper than about 1 inch to 2 inches. So we're very lucky here. Even with a snowpocalypse or an ice apocalypse, we very seldom get down to where we have a frost layer that's more than 1 or 2 inches deep. So cut a tree with a modified IBC tote with the top cut off, and then you can use. That sounds. Yep, that's a great idea. A great idea. You probably cut it down a little bit lower so you have a lot more standing capability rather than and yeah, that would be a great idea. And that's one of the things that I think I stress an awful lot is I believe, personal belief, that as we get into SHTF more and deeper, that we're going to be eating more and more soups, stews, and casseroles, and chowders, chowder when milk is available. But yeah, so I think that's the way that most people take a limited amount of protein, whether that be the broth, whether it be an egg, whether it be, and I think that's the reason why the Chinese have egg drop soup. Is a small amount of protein dispersed into a broth or a soup can then be consumed by a larger number of people, and you can make that protein spread out a lot better. So yeah, I can see how I have only been thinking of quail as the breast and eating it, but that's a great idea. Thank you for sharing that. That's a great reminder. I am going to try my potatoes next year in bales of hay. As I was watching Kevin Espiritu, this is Curtis Stone. Curtis Stone, he has a YouTube channel here, but he calls himself the Urban Farmer. He's getting out of it. He's been very successful, sold, done planning for people how you can turn your front yard and backyard into an edible garden, vegetable garden for your whole house. turn your house, selling microgreens to local restaurants and food stores. Very, very successful. That's another great book I strongly recommend. Is The Urban Garden, The Urban Farmer by Curtis Stone. But this guy, Kevin Espiritu, is just phenomenal. And he talks about growing his potatoes in hay bales. So I'm going to try that. The guy who was the best man at our wedding was from Gardner, although he pronounced it Gardner, Maine. And he always wanted me to go up there and go ice fishing with him. And have not yet done that. U.S. is smaller. Helen just said she imagines he's probably dead. He was only a couple years older than I am. No, he was just a couple years. He was a marathoner too. That probably killed him. Okay, here in Jersey, we have enough cold days anymore for ice on the water. It's been quite a few years. I have a feeling, watch Suspicious Observers, and he does a fantastic job of explaining how the solar things affect the Earth. And so then we've also got the migration of the poles. So we're getting ready for a polar shift. And then we've also got, of course, the man-made effect on the ozone layer. So all these different things are having play on the Earth, so that a lot of the things that we think are normal are becoming abnormal. I forget who I was talking with. Sumi. I was talking with Sumi, and she and I were noticing that it appears that the tornado alley has moved west one row of states, or one column of states. So Tornado Alley is kind of moving in a little bit. I'm sorry, moving east. It moved east a little bit more. I don't know what that is, so I can't help you. I don't do beets. The only time I've eaten beets and halfway appreciated them was with borscht. And that was when I was in language school. They made us eat and everything like a Russian, trying to, total immersion type of a thing. And so we ate borscht. And the other thing that I ate that I probably would not voluntarily eat again is called kvass. And that's basically a oatmeal type of a porridge. Oh, thank you, Little Lone Prepper. Thank you for putting that. I'm going to mess with my mouse here. I'm trying to get over here where I can catch up. So Little Lone Prepper put Suspicious Observers link there for everybody. He comes out, he does a 2 to 3 minute video every morning. I'm going to say we're between 7:30 and 8:30 Central. So very good. So my plan for the neighborhood is kind of like a stone soup. And that is, I've got a 5-gallon pot, and I've got and I'll have the stove, and I'm going to go out there with the water. And then if you want to throw something in, you can pull something out. And I've got a little list that I've made. For example, you aren't going to get as much out of the pot if you throw in, let's say, a cup of pasta, so if you throw a cup of pasta into the pot, you're going to get a cup out. If you put a cup of protein, chicken, tuna, ground beef, something like that, then you get to pull 2 cups out. So, I have this exchange ratio of how people will be able to do it. Now, in order to participate, period, you have to bring 1 liter of water, one bottle of water, with the seal still intact, and 6 cubes of charcoal, 6 briquettes of charcoal. And that way I have, I can keep the fire going, and I can also add volume to the soup as far as the water. And then I'll kick it off. I have probably 100 packages that I have vacuum sealed of Bear Creek soups. And so that will be my starter. I'll start that off, and I'll put out a sign on basically what we're eating that day. So, if we're doing chicken noodle soup, then of course you can bring a can of chicken, or you can bring noodles, or you can bring a can of mixed vegetables, and what you can add to it in order for us to have a meal together. The only thing that I don't know is how I'm going to handle security. So I'm going to have somebody else probably do the cooking and serving and everything for me, instead of me doing it myself, because I don't want to be out there where I'm going to be vulnerable to people getting rid of me and coming in and taking what I have. I believe I'm not. I know he says that the equator used to be up further north, but I'm not sure, and it's because of the tilt of the poles. So, and it won't be the rotation of the Earth won't change. I don't know. Anyhow, we are in for some fun. I can guarantee you that. Yes, and Kaylin brings out, and he did a special, a 10-minute special here, just 4 o'clock this afternoon, 5 o'clock this afternoon, and he was talking very much about that he had predicted stronger hurricanes happening as a result of all the solar influence, and then of course with the magnetic protection that we have and the ozone layer both, the magnetic field is weakening because of the polar shift. Ozone layer is weakening because of man-made stuff, and then you've got so M-class flares are now having some of the impact that 100 years ago would have taken an X-class flare to do. So yeah, a lot of things are changing. I bought a jar. To be honest with you, I bought a jar of super beets, and they say that 1 teaspoon of that mixed into water make a beet juice. And that's supposed to be a meal, basically. So, I'm going to see what that does. I've never tried it, but we'll see how it does. I haven't caught them that frequently, but when I do, they're good. And they're a little bit longer normally than it's 2.5, 3-minute video in the morning. So the one that I heard shenanigans was that it was either a British or an American pilot that was shot down over Italy, and that he was living in a barn and he threw a rock into a pot of water and was boiling it, and the farmers wanted to know what he was doing, and he said he was making stone soup, and they said, well, what does it taste like? He says, well, in order to get a taste, you have to bring something and throw into it. And so as all the Italians in the neighborhood brought more and more stuff and added to it, it became more and more of a soup. I don't know. That's the story I heard. I'm sure that there are thousands of different versions of it. But anyhow, let's see here. It depends. Once again, it's one of those things that it all depends. It depends on how thin it is, how thick it is, what the contents are. For example, you could add a lot of bone broth to a soup and basically turn it into a meal and be pretty protein heavy. Now, as far as calories, I don't know. That's going to be, we would have to take a look at how we would get the calories in that. But of course, a lot of fat would do the calories. So you're not going to get that much fat, however, out of freeze-dried products. So it's going to, primarily be canned products. Let me see. Long cooking meats help increase the proteins in soup. Plus, if you're dehydrated meat, you can blend it till it's a powder and add the soups to the protein. So basically what Maggie's talking about here is basically the same thing as what the Native Americans did when they made pemmican. So you take your meat and basically you dry the protein portion of it, then you turn the other into tallow, and because if we're talking primarily buffalo or grazing animals like that, so you have tallow, and so then you mix berries, some grains, and your dried beef into the tallow, and you get that all together into a ball, and then that becomes your meal, your MRE, if you think of it that way. So they also did a lot of what they call Three Sisters planting, where they would plant a stalk of corn, okra, and pole beans, I believe, to get okra. No, I'm sorry. Okra was used in place of corn sometimes because that's a tall growing bush one. But so it's either corn or okra, squash, and beans were the three that they would put together. Squash is the ground cover, and then the beans would basically use either the okra or the corn as a trellis to grow up on. And then they would put those with the protein portion of the beef as well as the tallow and berries. They did a lot of berries, native berries, blueberries, blackberries, and that would be their. I just said it. Gosh, I feel like I'm turning into somebody that ought to run for president. I'm forgetting stuff. Pemmican. There we go. Let me see here. Yes, true. So when I was younger, that was something we did for college. We're talking 1970 here. But two friends and I, Joe Fernandez, and then Scott Mosier and I would go out. And now that area where we used to go hunting is now part of the Trans Mountain Highway in El Paso. But we would go out hunting for coyotes, and then we were getting $25 for a pair of ears, for coyote ears, because they were taking out all the dairy cattle from the dairy farms. And so we would go out hunting for coyotes, and that's how we pretty much paid our tuition, was through hunting coyotes. And I look at the safety of that because we'd set up a horseshoe, and so the ricochets, oh gosh, in a valley, we would be on one here, and these two guys shooting across. Wasn't such a good idea now that I think about it as I'm older, but we made it through it, so we'll see. We shall see. So sweet potatoes can create a denser soup as well. Yes, and and of course flour is a great thickener as well. Mashed peas. That's what the Brits did. Was they would mash their peas, and that's a real good thickener for them. You could take the inside beans out of green beans and mash those, and that becomes a great thickener. So there's all kinds of great thickeners you can use to add calories and protein. We have woodpeckers here instead of owls, although we can hear an owl every once in a while, but it's far off. Our owls, the owls that I'm aware of are pretty much a little bit south of here. Oh, thank you. So Utah still pays a bounty on coyotes. That's great. I think West Texas does still too. I saw a chicken hawk. Well, no, I take that back. I did not see. My nephew had a Chihuahua that was out in the backyard going to the bathroom, and a chicken hawk came down and grabbed the Chihuahua and tried to fly off with it. But the weight caused the chicken hawk to misjudge his ascent after grabbing it and slammed the Chihuahua into the fence and then lost grip on it. And they ended up taking the Chihuahua to the emergency room, and he had to have all kinds of stitches. And poor dog, it just messed him up for life. He was afraid to go outside and go to the bathroom forever after that. But a chicken hawk tried to carry off a Chihuahua. I just saw a video earlier today, and I forget his name. God, and it was a great video. But he did a test on can you use number 9 buckshot for home defense, and he took a rack of ribs. And well, first he put two layers of denim, a rack of ribs, a 1-gallon milk jug filled with water, another rack of ribs, and then another layer of denim. And he was about 10 feet away and hit it with number 9 buckshot, 20 gauge. And it went completely through the denim, made a hole about that big around, went completely through the rack of ribs, and even broke some of the bone on the ribs, went into the water bottle, tore it in half, and threw the water at least 10 feet every direction. Then it hit, but did not penetrate the second rack of ribs. And of course, it did nothing to the other layer of clothing. But he says in his guesstimation, not only is number 9 buckshot good for birds, but you can also use it for home defense. So I thought that was an interesting video. I have CDs back here to keep the birds away from my tomatoes. So yes. And then I have another CD hanging over there to keep them away from my strawberry planter. And so yeah, the CDs, the reflections and catching the line, plus the vibration and everything else, does a good job of keeping them away. Okay, we are at an hour. So thanks everybody for being here. We're going to get this shut down. Let me see if I can find my book. There it is. Let's see what we're going to be discussing next week. I don't have a topic for Monday night, so if anybody wants to make any suggestions, please send me an email. Oh, this is going to be great. I'll just keep this out. Monday night is going to be, in his book, medical supplies and training. So that kind of matches the interview we did last night. So if anybody can think of somebody for a great interview, I did talk to Michelle last night after the video, or after the live, and she's going to come back the first Monday in August, and our topic is going to be homeopathic healing. So basically using different plants, essential oils, and different herbs and tinctures and things like that. So the focus is going to be homeopathic healing for the first Monday in August. So if anybody has a great idea for next Monday night or would like to be interviewed for next Monday night, please send me an email. Maggie, let me see. Maggie, if you would share that link. Maggie sent me a link today, and doggone, I'm sorry, I'm so discombobulated right now. But basically what it is it's another way of seniors being able to get additional support as far as food sourcing and additional stuff like that. And I was going to put it up, and Maggie, we talked about it, but I thought you were going to put that up. I thought I was going to put it up. I don't know. Anyhow, we've got a link. And so if anybody is interested, send me an email and I will send you the link to where you can check into a federal program on how seniors can get additional income beyond Social Security. And this is legit, so that you can get more food. Okay. So thanks everybody for being here. Remember Numbers chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. And the Lord keep you and bless you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and grant you peace. So thanks everybody. Great chat. Thank you as always. Please remember that we're all in this together. So please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other. And you continue to do that. And I thank you so much for that, because the only way we're going to get through this is if we do it together. Take care, everybody. Have a great evening. I will see you next Monday night. Don't forget to send me those suggestions. Take care. Bye-bye.